the bottom line is this passage or this parable has been interpreted allegorically into what we call today as replacement theology. The Jews are out, the Gentiles are in. Israel is out, the church is in. The Torah is out, the New Testament is in, or Old Testament's out, New Testament's in. Law of Moses is out, Law of Christ is in. Old Covenant is out, New Covenant is in. Whatever terminology you're familiar with, those are the stakes. Those are the issues that are at stake here. And so what we have is Jesus basically bringing some form of theology that is incompatible with the existing worldview or existing religious perspective. So that's why he has to say that if we just try to take what I'm bringing and sew it onto the old coat of Judaism, you're going to have a rip and it's going to make a mess. So you can't do that. Also, if you take my new teaching, I'm speaking the allegory that Christian commentators opt for. If you take my new teaching about the kingdom of heaven and the radical transformation, of the new covenant and things like that, and you try to just simply pour it into old wine skins like Judaism, it's going to be incompatible. It's not going to work. My new wine is going to burst those old wineskins. And so you got a problem. So what we need to do is we need to take this old worldview, this old religious system, and unfortunately it has to go. It has to go. We can't simply pour my new theology into that old system. So I'm going to bring something new. It's radically new. And the Gentile Christian church kind of picked up on this allegory and ran with it to an absurd level. And so Judaism felt the sting, bowed out. Gentile Christianity kind of rose to the forefront. And now, for the last 2,000 years, that's essentially the default position and religion that is dominant, is Gentile forms of Christianity, where it's very difficult to retrace the Jewish roots of Christianity in many places where Christianity is taught and practiced and things like that. I was raised fundamental Baptist, and if you asked the independent fundamental Baptists, at least at the church that I went to, what do you think about Israel? If you ask the pastor there, what do you think about Israel? What do you think about the law of Moses? There wasn't a lot of discussion about that. In fact, I grew up never even really realizing who Israel was. We just didn't study the Old Testament. I know that's not true of every church, but at least it was true in the church that I went to. So it wasn't until later in life that I went back and read the Bible for myself, and my eyes were just popped wide open, like, wow, who are these people known as Israel? What is this law called the law of God, the law of Moses, and what's its relevancy for me in my life today as a believer? So that's the allegory. But if we also take this passage and just mine it for its kind of common sense value without any allegory, then if you take all three of the elements, the pieces, and put them together and compare them, basically in verse 15, that's part A of three parts. Verse 16 is kind of part B, and then verse 17 is like part C. If you take all three of these parts, A, B, and C, and you kind of look at them and compare the practical, the common sense value of each, basically Yeshua is saying to those who questioned him, you can't change people's opinion. They're always going to really just do what makes sense. They're going to do things that are practical, and just don't fight that. For instance, since the bridegroom is here, why would anyone mourn? I mean, it just doesn't make sense, right? That's nonsense. So, of course, my disciples are going to not fast. They're not going to mourn. Why? Because who mourns and fasts at a wedding, right? That doesn't make any sense. So there's like a common sense challenge here from Yeshua's perspective, as if he's kind of looking at the people around him going, duh, well, wouldn't you also rejoice and feast since it's a wedding? Why would you fast? And then moving with that kind of suggestion, Yeshua offers the B and C parts. He's like, I'm paraphrasing. Yeshua's like, would anyone put a piece of unshrunk cloth in an old garment? And of course, the answer is no, right? And why wouldn't you? Because duh, common sense. People are going to do the common sense thing, right? You don't put a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, right? Which fits in with the common sense answer about mourning and fasting at a wedding, right? You do the right thing. You do the common sense thing. And then moving right along to verse 17, the C part. Also, is anyone here going to put new wine into old wineskins? Everyone scratches their head and thinks about it and says, well, no. And Yeshua would say, why wouldn't you? And the crowd would say, well, because it doesn't make sense. It's common sense implies that we should put new wine into fresh wineskins, right? So that you can keep them both. I mean, why would anyone do something stupid and put new wine in old wine? So it's almost like Yeshua is simply arguing from the common sense, practical perspective. He's not really teaching anything deeper other than, hey, don't slam my boys and throw them under the bus. Speaking about his disciples, they're just doing the common sense thing, right? Come on. I mean, I'm with them, and why wouldn't they? So in other words, the anchor to the common sense issue is the first part about the wedding guests mourning as long as the bridegroom's with them. That question, and that is the anchor. And then the other two elements, the B and C, or if you read the Luke account, there's actually a D, a fourth one, about a question about people preferring the old wine over the new wine.